And blessed to be with you, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you all for joining us. Phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Of course, we always, never reluctantly, always enthusiastically support traditional American values in our culture. And that's why each and every morning we're blessed to be a part of your morning and let you know what's going on. Joining us now is author James Robbins, Erasing American History, Losing Our Future by Destroying Our Past. Talk a little bit about what's going on in Washington, D.C. Good morning, sir.
Hey, Kevin. Good morning.
Good to have you with us once again. So we've got this report that apparently, according to CNBC, they're reporting that the Supreme Court, their justices are considering removing a giant World War I memorial cross.
That's right. The Supreme Court is going to hear a case, an appeal case from the Fourth Circuit on a memorial cross that's in Bladensburg, Maryland, that was set up to honor World War I dead in the 1920s. And the Fourth Circuit has said that that cross must either be altered to make it not a cross, or it must come down.
And this will be, and so this is going up to the Supreme Court?
Right. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear the case, and so they'll be ruling on this. It also affects other crosses. For example, there are two in Arlington National Cemetery that are very similar to this, also set up to honor World War I dead. And if the ruling stands as it is, that these crosses too could be threatened, and they might also have to come down.
So when you take a look at this, why all of a sudden our cross is persona non grata?
Well, I think that to a certain group of people in this country, they always have been. It's radical activists who, given the structure of the law, they use the First Amendment as a cudgel to attack these traditional monuments. And in this case, a group of atheists and humanists have brought the case against the Bladensburg Cross, saying that it infringes on the First Amendment, that because the state of Maryland are the ones who pay to maintain this thing, it costs like $1,000 a year to mow the grass and things like that, that this is an unconstitutional mixing of church and state. And these activist groups go around the country trying to find cases like this and bully municipalities and states into getting rid of these kind of traditional religiously themed monuments, even though no one actually worships at the Bladensburg Cross. I mean, it's not actually a site where people go to, engage in religious worship. It's just a symbol.
Right, and years ago we had a controversy here in Boise involving the Ten Commandments, and we've seen the Ten Commandments being targeted as well.
Oh, definitely. The Ten Commandments monuments that are, outside courthouses and state houses and other places around the country have been targeted for removal. But luckily, the Supreme Court has been moving in a direction that is more in favor of keeping up these traditional monuments. Justice Clarence Thomas, in particular, has been in the forefront of this, saying that so long as people aren't coerced into religious worship or things like that, that this is a understanding of the First Amendment that's closer to what the Founding Fathers believed. The kind of radical notion that any kind of religious symbol is, by its nature, unconstitutional, which has held sway for many years, is kind of under attack now. And the Supreme Court is moving more in a direction of saying that if it's just there passively, standing there, not forcing you to do something, not forcing the establishment of an actual religion or of actual religious worship, that it is not hostile to the First Amendment.
When we take a look at just how our national history is being rewritten, recently I had a chance to go to the memorial at Pearl Harbor, and I couldn't believe that a park ranger, and I've shared this with the audience here on KIDO Talk Radio, Mr. Robbins, started saying that America put the Japanese in concentration camps. Now, I'm not embellishing what she said, not internment camps, but here you have an employee of the United States government, the Park Service, telling people that maybe they don't have the critical thinking skills to understand the difference, the important difference, that the United States government put people in concentration camps.
Well, it is important to understand the difference between the types of camps that the Nazis had, in which they were exterminating people, and what happened to Japanese Americans. And again, not trying to justify what happened in this country, but probably not good for somebody like a park ranger to throw out a word like that without context, without trying to explain the difference. Particularly these days when people really aren't getting the kind of education that they should get in our high schools or universities, and where there are people out there who probably actively want to promote the idea that the United States is just as bad as Nazi Germany. And so, I think there are a lot of left-wingers who would say, yeah, what we did in World War II with the Japanese, it was bad, but not as bad as what happened in Nazi Germany. But I'm sure there are people out there who want to promote the idea that it was just as bad.
I'm shocked, though, that a park ranger would be allowed to get away with that, considering, as you pointed out, sir, the big difference is erasing America, losing our future by destroying our past. Why do they hate our past? Why do they seek to destroy it?
Well, they want to reshape the past in order to affect our perceptions of this country. If you are brought up believing that the founding fathers were a bunch of, bad guys, slave owners, that the entire history of this country is one of racism and sexism and imperialism and oppression and whatever other ism you want to throw in there, and that, the country was built on exploitation and things like this, then you're really attacking the legitimacy of the entire system. You're attacking the whole foundation of understanding of why our country is actually a good country, why it's actually been a great country. And I think they do this in order to wipe the slate clean, in order to be able to erect a whole different kind of country, to say, well, everything that happened in the past was bad, so in the future we're going to move in a radically new direction, towards socialism or whatever utopian vision they have. And the first step in doing this is attacking the foundation of our understanding of why we live in a great country.
Mr. Robbins, anything else you'd like to share with us? How can people get your book and keep up to date on how they're trying to destroy our history?
Oh, well, it's not hard to see how they're trying to destroy our history. It's in the news every day. The book is on Amazon, and I also write for USA Today. And, hopefully people will be more aware of what's going on out there. And then when they see this happening in their communities, then try to take action to push back and say, no, we actually live in a really great country. Maybe there were some mistakes made in the past, but there are also a lot of great things that have happened in the past. And it's a lot better to add to our history and to our story than to tear it down.
Mr. Robbins, we appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO, proudly defending America, proudly defending Idaho. In state news, it seems shocking to me. By the way, two shocking stories coming out of the state legislature. Looks like there's going to be a new ballot initiative. You can get the details at KIDOTalkRadio.com. The push to move to legalize medical marijuana. And by the way, there's going to be, Rayamai, you're going to love this one, there's going to be a Miss Marijuana pageant. Now, somebody, somewhere, loves to tweak yours truly. It's bad enough that, no kidding, thanks to Billy and Rayamai, I was freed from the corporate restroom this morning. That's tough enough when you come in and all of a sudden you're locked in a corporate restroom. And look, just like your offices, corporate restrooms are not like your restrooms at home. So you're wondering if you're going to be able to do the program today. Number one, you wonder if it's the deep state striking at you. And then number two, for some reason, the pro-pot purveyors, that's right, let's say it one more time, everybody. Time to wake up and start the day. The pro-pot purveyors love to tweak me. And they've sent me a press release about the Miss Marijuana pageant. I don't know if it's national or it's local. What are you going to be running around in marijuana leaves? I don't. At least it's not the Mr. Marijuana, good point, pageant. So at KIDOTalkRadio.com, there's our newest story. Medical marijuana, the big initiative, is coming to the forefront. Now, there's a big controversy in the legislature involving the ballot initiatives. You have some groups of Republicans that want the ballot initiative to be tougher, to be more challenging. Maybe they're tired of the education ballots getting shot down. By the way, the ballot initiatives have not been good for the conservatives. And let's face it, the only time anything really works in this state, like in any other state, is if you have big money behind it, right? Prop 2, big money. Prop 1, not as much. Didn't make it. So now you have this brouhaha where people are going on and on and on about making initiatives tougher here in the Gem State. So we can get fired up. And hold on, let me say this with a smile because it's so early to be. We can get fired up about an initiative and have protesters and state senators and debating this issue and everybody testifying, yet no one's championing the grocery tax except you, the repeal of it. And now we hear that, just as we predicted before the legislature started, that they're going to use it next year to help them all get reelected. Is that really servicing the people? Here's the latest controversy from our friends at Channel 7 on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio.
Have 6% of voters in 18 districts, so you're essentially doubling that. Now, the bill would also cut the time allowed to gather the signatures from 18 months now to 180 days, only 6 months. Now, dozens and dozens of people signed up to testify on the legislation, but only a few got to so far today. Senator Patty Ann Lodge nearly ended the hearing, noting that she still wanted to have testimony, but that most of the people were largely against the bill. However, Republican Senator Chuck Winder pointed out that cutting off testimony could give the impression that the lawmakers weren't interested in listening. Now, critics of this bill say that the legislation is an attack on grassroots initiatives like...
Now, before we get to this, and by the way, Joe Parrish, thank you. Well, of course they don't want to hear people that are against it. They're still going to vote for it. The fix is in. Maybe I'm wrong. Look, there are a lot of good people, and like with everyone, we can agree to disagree, but you have a group of folks that have sponsored this bill. They want to make it a little bit more challenging to get the referendums through. And after Medicaid expansion and the embarrassment in a Republican state, I can see why. And I can see all of a sudden with the libs coming in. Look, I've thought about referendums ourselves concerning capping this, capping that. It's never happened. And now all of a sudden you're going to set the bar a weeny, teeny, leeny, beeny higher.
Medicaid expansion, but bill sponsor Senator Scott Grow is adamant that it's not.
We think that it should be difficult to get initiatives on the ballot. But we are here to say that it is already very difficult.
That's not Scott Grow. That's somebody else.
Difficult to qualify an initiative for the ballot in Idaho.
Prop 2 is passed.
That's Senator Grow.
It's the law of the land. It is not an attack on Prop 2 or anybody that's worked on Prop 2. This is looking at avoiding Idaho becoming, even the possibility of it becoming, a California or an Oregon as far as being governed by voter initiatives.
You know, he's got a point there. I got to give it to Senator Grow, and apparently he was looking for us. He was looking for our contact information, and if Senator Grow's listening, he's in Meridian. Not in Moscow like they had him in one of the press releases. We'd welcome him aboard. I believe he's doing the tour, but regardless, I love that. Nope, not going to be California. Not going to be California. So there's a firestorm concerning initiatives and whether or not they should be easier or harder. We'll talk a little bit about it. Again, my big thing is, where's the repeal of the grocery tax? And then we've got the medical marijuana initiative. Isn't that how it starts? Let's join the conversation now. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
We think that it should be difficult to get initiatives on the ballot. But we are here to say that it is already very difficult to qualify an initiative for the ballot in Idaho.
Prop 2 is passed. It's the law of the land. It is not an attack on Prop 2 or anybody that's worked on Prop 2. This is looking at avoiding Idaho becoming, even the possibility of it becoming, a California or an Oregon as far as being governed by voter initiatives.
There you have it from Senator Grow. Has to be the compelling soundbite against voter initiatives. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller with you personally. I think I'd rather have the voting against the grocery tax initiative. Of course, if they make it tougher for initiatives, that'll never happen. But in reality, do we really need more additional legislation? Of course, we do have big money interests coming in. You can't tell me that Prop 2 wasn't financed by big money out-of-staters, and this new medical marijuana initiative is not funded by the pot companies. Traffic and weather together. Our time is 6:24.
Kevin's Eric Gabbard.
Let's go to the phones, and we go to Hank in Boise, who joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Hank.
I'll slip this in before I go to the main topic of initiatives. Custer has been hired by the Statesman as part of their editorial staff.
I saw that.
You know?
Yeah, I
and
saw that.
also, he's also, of course, their political advisor paid by the taxpayers and students. Don't you see an incestuous relationship in the sense of building the Democrat Party in Ada County with the connection with Boise State and the Idaho Statesman, and also in this Statesman stand and saying that the move against the baseball stadium is anti-Boise? Don't you see the smell and the incestuousness that's going on here?
I would agree. I would agree with you. And Dave Beater has had his kingdom for quite some time, along with Bob Costra. On the other hand, where's the opposition? You know, they are allowed to operate because the Republicans allow them to operate. Where are people saying, you know something, we're going to be competitive. We're going to make Dave Beater work. We're going to make this a competitive race. And I believe, wasn't there a proposal in the legislature that kind of got shuffled to the side that would make these races partisan?
Yes, but it's out of fear. I remember years ago, Grant Empson, who was the senator, which the Boise State, we nailed Boise State, and they were exposed in open hearings before the joint finance thing, and he would not take any action. He was practically trembling in fear. This is what came across to me years ago, back in 2004. The Republicans, particularly in Ada County, are fearful of education. They fear that if the higher ed turns on them, and the thing is that Grant Empson still lost office. There was no. I mean, you're better off fighting these people than necessarily getting along, because they'll go after you anyway. This is the problem with the Rhino Republicans. They feel that if they can hide their heads in the sand, run to the tall grass, that somehow they can escape the raft of they can somehow avoid open conflicts with the education bloc, and because education is such a holy thing to so many voters. And
right.
I think that's a lot of the behavior. Now, as far as the initiative is concerned, I was a big favor of the initiative process, but I believe that they should increase the number of signatures and make it harder. The problem is that if you have enough money where you can hire people to collect signatures, and this is where IACI comes in with on the Medicaid expansion, all of Butchie's initiatives, Butchie Baby, our unlimited governor, in their actions, all were feeding on Idaho Chamber of the Idaho Chamber of or IACI, of Commerce and Industry. That's basically the official name of IACI. They provided the seed money for this because basically, again, Blue Cross Blue Shield wanted the Medicaid expansion, and this is what runs this stuff. In other words, if you put the grocery tax thing will probably fail because there's not enough money up front to hire enough petition collectors. You can get anything on the ballot if you have enough money to hire enough petition collectors.
Well, what's the move by the Republicans to do this then? Are they scared, as Senator Gross said, of this becoming Oregon or California?
Well, I think that there is a genuine fear of this. I think that the marijuana initiative in Oregon is a disaster. I think that there's a good chance it could possibly pass here in here, largely because of the vote. Basically, I think because of the most populated counties, Kootenai County, Ada Canyon County, and Ada County might provide the margin of vote against the rest of the state.
Well, who's going to come out against it besides us?
Well, that's the problem again, because most of your politicians are not going to try to they're going to try to avoid taking sides on it. That's how most of them operate. They're gonna try to stay out of it, neutral or out of it.
Well, they're going to play the libertarian card.
Or the libertarian card because it's the safest politically.
Right.
And I mean that's the calculations that they're doing. So I think that it'd be a terrible thing if they legalize hemp. I'm in total agreement with you on that. But the thing is, that side has money. I think that this is not necessarily all homegrown. There's money behind these efforts. Money that comes out of out of state that supports these efforts to legalize marijuana.
Of course, yes.
So I think that this is the key to the thing. And the same thing I was saying is not so much. The other day you were making the comment on my call yesterday about agreeing with cash on the corporate thing. Corporate thing is only part of it. Money, the money, wherever the source is the dictating part of politics. I don't think the social utopianism of AOC or is going to do us any good. But the reality of politics is money. This is what gets the politicians on your side or against your side, because you can supply the cash, you've got the politicians, and that's the reality of it.
All right, Hank, thank you for the call and listening to KIDO Talk Radio. Let's find out what's happening in your world. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
And rolling right along to Rachel Sutherland. Then it'll be our friend Tom Munns. Rachel Sutherland, Fox News Radio, live from Capitol Hill right here in Idaho on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Rachel, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin.
So is it a good day for the president's budget proposal?
Well, not according to Democrats. They don't like pretty much anything about it. It does have the $8.6 billion for a border wall, but that's not the only problem that Democrats see. They don't like some of the proposed cuts to social programs, whether you want to look at it as stopping the expansion of Medicaid and Medicare or cuts. That's what they're saying. They don't like it. And already the Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer, has been saying that there could be another lengthy government shutdown. I heard you mention Dave Ramsey on the way in. I mean, he always says to have some money in the bank. It's great advice and maybe good for federal workers. We know that the government is funded through the end of September. That may seem a ways off, but it will arrive quickly, and then they'll be dealing with a possible, showdown over all this.
Boy, that's crazy. So, Mitch McConnell, certainly the art of compromise, the great compromiser. Any reaction from him? I know it's early.
Well, I think that really lawmakers are still poring over all of this. I think that they back the president when it comes to expansion and more money for the military. It's about a 5% increase. So they'll back things like that, I believe. But when it comes to the idea of, say, the Space Force, which I believe it also includes money for that, and that's always kind of received a more tepid response from members of Congress. They're not interested in spending that kind of money on creating a separate branch of the military for something the Air Force is already doing. But there's a lot of talk about fiscal responsibility. In the short term, this plan would raise deficits. In the long term, given the White House economic projections for the economy, now this is kind of shaky ground, but they're saying that by the year 2035, it would be a balanced budget. But that's if everything goes according to plan.
Right, and Larry Kudlow was on with our own Chris Wallace, or your own Chris Wallace,
Yep.
Whoever. Fox News is Chris Wallace saying...
Yeah, he's his own man.
saying that it was a 15-year projection as opposed to the usual 10, and he and Wallace were going back and forth on that this Sunday.
Right, yeah, I did see that interview. Yeah, because what they're basing this on is that the economy is going to continue going at, gangbuster pace. Well, we don't know that. I mean, it's going great. We've had bust and boom times before, so I think that it's the White House really expecting, and it's great to be optimistic, but maybe not hang all the hopes on it. And again, this is just an opening offer from the president. No president gets everything he wants out of a budget. I think the main sticking point for Democrats right now is the border wall money and the proposed cuts to social programs.
Well, another bombshell that happened yesterday, Nancy Pelosi announcing no impeachment.
Yeah. Well, at least at this point, she did give that little caveat. She said, unless something bipartisan and, just overwhelming, compelling came forth, that she didn't see any move for impeachment. Now, that means that some of these freshman lawmakers have rolled in, like AOC and Rashida Tlaib of Michigan and Ilhan Omar of Minnesota. They have all been really just railing against everything this Trump White House does. And it's interesting to see, because Nancy Pelosi just trying to deal with these young women who have come in and want to shake things up. But even House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer was kind of hitting back at all this. He told Fox News, we've got 62 new members, not 3. So we can we can imagine who he was referring to there.
Rachel, we always appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Here he is, Tom the Tiger, Tom Munz, TomMunz.com. Munz Tom Twitter, the Idaho Watchdog. Good morning, sir.
Thanks, Kevin. I had a couple of things. One thing was, you'd mentioned something about pot, and I'd mentioned before that, it's for me, what really brought about my desire to legalize it was the obliteration of the Fourth Amendment, the obliteration of the separation of powers when you have local jurisdictions that are enforcing federal law. I mean, it's wrong on so many different levels. And here's the thing that kind of is kind of how it works, and I don't know if most people pay attention to this, but the government tries to restrict a freedom that is inherent in the people, and what do the people do? Well, we're going to break the law because we want our freedom. And so we try to legalize it, and then we have the lobby and we have the government that won't allow us to do it. So my question is every time you look at it, there's a conflict of interest. Government's always in the middle of it, and it always seems to be the problem. And so I wanted to also say that, when you were talking about referendums and stuff like that, the socialist referendums and things in contrary to our Constitution should not be difficult. They should be impossible. The problem is, I think that so few people understand what a Republican form of government looks like and what legalized plunder looks like, that we just implement these things because we do it from the heart and everybody else's pocketbook rather than a firm understanding of civics. The other thing about it is, you've got Medicaid. Every time somebody wants something from the government, it takes away their independence and it takes away their freedom. So when you look back at how uneducated people are, when they're advocating for things like Prop 2, even though there was special interest money involved, I'm not denying that at all, you have people saying, enslave me, enslave me. And that's really not Americanism. And also the other thing about that is universal health care has always been something totalitarians have pushed for in order to be able to subjugate their people. In this case, when we were talking about trade agreements and Agenda 21 yesterday, the move toward a single-payer health care is absolutely essential for the establishment of the United Nations Charter on Human Rights. The other thing too that I wanted to mention was that I went to a chamber meeting a couple of weeks ago, and what was really clear to me was their focus on prosperity. How do businesses become prosperous? How do we encourage businesses to come? Do you know what was lacking in that? Anybody that operated on any sort of principles of freedom. That's the sad part. So, when they talk about the grocery tax, they think, oh, this is a cost-benefit analysis. This is going to be good for Idaho. But they never look at what the cost of that is to freedom. So they're utilizing capitalism in an effort to destroy capitalism. Does that make sense?
I don't know, Tom. Maybe you're just a Jeffersonian and I'm a Hamiltonian, but I think federal law trumps state law, and it has been for many, many years.
Well, as you know, I've done my homework. I've done my reading. I'm not saying that you haven't, but I think it's up for debate. And the best way to understand, the most simple way to understand this for anybody of any intellectual understanding here is: did the states create the federal government, or did the federal government create the states?
Oh, you got me on that one.
Well, and if you've got the 9th and 10th Amendments, it's pretty well clear that the federal government, doesn't have any authority except for when it funds the states, which hamstrings the states. So I would argue on both of our behalfs. I think the original intent is on my side through states.
Sure.
And I think that today, through financial funding, I think we do have federal supremacy because the states aren't willing to be able to balance their budgets.
So, Tom, what do you make of this move to revise how a referendum is contrived? You're on the inside. You talk to these lawmakers. You travel all these states. What do you make of it? The critics say it's going to make it more difficult, and then you got Senator Gross saying we're not going to be Oregon or California. Your thoughts?
Well, we're already becoming California or Oregon. I think Senator Gross got a point. Although I'm not completely up to date on the intricacies of how the governments work. I spend most of my time understanding the law. Leave the process to that part of the process to other people. Things should be difficult in order to be able to sift through the process between the two parties. I know that for a fact, and that has a principle backing for that. But what you have to do is you have to look at the referendum. If the GOP establishment, which likes to hold really good bills, which is a problem already, so there's a multitude of confusion and problems in this, and I think the referendum is smoke and mirrors and related to the whole project or into the whole picture, because the GOP has what it wants. It does what it wants. It does the bidding for the corporations and does very little for the average citizen. And so when you have to start breaking that apart before you get under that. If we're going for a referendum, is it because there's another part of the system that's broken?
Or we fear marijuana coming in. Tom, thank you for the call. Let's go to Pete in Mountain Home with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Pete.
Kevin, I did a little bit of analysis on the referendum deal. It takes 18 out of the 35 legislative districts. You got to get, 6% in each one of those to get it on the ballot?
Yeah.
And you look at you count the legislative districts. Boise has 9, Nampa Meridian 4, Pocatello 2, Ooh. Moscow 1, Coeur d'Alene 3.
Boy, a lot in Boise.
That's 19 legislative districts, so you can completely ignore the rest of Idaho. The rural parts of Idaho, you can ignore them. You go to the population centers, you go particularly to the universities, and set your tables up, and you can get pretty much anything you want on the ballot.
Huh.
And I think what the legislature is saying is that's why you get the anti-gun propositions going through in Oregon and Washington. They ignore the people in the rural areas, and they just get it down there in the big cities. And so I'm in favor of this. I think that you want to get a proposition that changes the law or the Constitution in Idaho, you go out in the rural areas and persuade everybody that lives in Idaho that that's a good idea. And I think making it so you can't just do it in the cities and the university towns, I think that's a real good idea. Of course, I'm biased. I live in Mountain Home.
Well, we shall see. Shall we? Pete.
And I would like to say that what's going on right now in Venezuela with their power grid collapsing, I think Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez ought to be able to use that as another way of saying how wonderful socialism is, because now they've gone green in Venezuela.
Ha! Well, maybe we should send her down to fix it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kevin, for being a voice for those of us in the rural areas. We appreciate it.
Well, Pete, thank you for thinking of us on KIDO Talk Radio every morning, brother.
And I will be listening to you every morning.
Thank you. You have a great day, sir.
You too.
All right, our great friend Pete joining us. Coming up next, pro-life, and Tucker Carlson is trying to prevent himself from being fired. They're going after Tucker next. Who's after him? We'll talk about it. Kevin Miller on your home for Hannity, KIDO Talk Radio. And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. Talking a little bit about referendums and you, of course, repeal the Grocery Tax Express right here with us each and every morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Pro-Life.
Good morning. You know, the real problem is that the bulk of the people out there, the general individual, is not very intelligent. And they can be persuaded to do things they shouldn't. The only real human progress is made through individual responsibility and initiative and faith in God. And we don't have that in our people. And the best thing Idaho could do would be to get rid of initiatives. Just repeal that part of our Constitution. And see, that's the problem. The Republicans, lots of them understand that and know that, but they don't have the courage to say, let's get rid of initiatives altogether.
Well, they seem to be doing that by making it more difficult.
Well, they try to, but if they were really, if you went and questioned lots of them individually, they'd say, yeah, it'd be better if we didn't even have those. Now, I'm saying that a person that is intelligent enough to get elected to a legislature has a little more intelligence than the general voter. And so we're better off just relying on them. And initiatives are really bad because when you get a socialist mind, like comes out of public school people, then
the majority of the people are educated in public school.
Yeah, I know. That's why we're like this. That's why we're.
Oh, I don't think we're as bad as you would say.
Well, we're pretty bad, and
we're pretty bad.
I mean, we're a pretty messed up civilization.
So, do you agree with Senator Groh that we should take a look at this? We're on our way to being Oregon and California. By the way, again, a great soundbite by him.
Yeah, I agree with him, but I think that it should go further. See, he's just trying to get a compromise kind of a thing, like let's make it harder. I say just get rid of initiatives.
Yeah, how tough would that be?
It'd be tough.
Well, life doesn't revolve around you, pro-life, so maybe you have to compromise. Boy, I sound like a lib here.
Well, listen, that's how we got this way, because you're taught in school that compromise is the highest thing you can do.
That's how our government was made, is to compromise.
No, non-compromise is you have to hold to what you really believe, because compromise will always lead to hell.
Now compromise is leading to hell.
Yeah. Financial, spiritual, whatever. You can't compromise the commandments. You can't compromise natural law. Whatever is, you have to live with that.
And pro-life, that'll be the last word. Sperm meets egg, traffic and weather together, 107.5 FM. And coming up next, the latest on the battle for the border wall, right here with you and me, waking up on the right side. Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.